There's a series, if you're not old enough to remember it, that ran for 6 series, back from, I think, 82 to obviously 88 or something like that. On British television, it was massively popular. It had songs like High Fidelity in it, which we'll play a little bit later on, and Friday Night and Star Maker and things like that. And it made stars of the people who played the principal parts, 2 of which you're going to hear from now. In a moment, Valerie Landsburg, who played Doris Schwartz, a sort of every person related to her. She had short black hair, she was everybody's friend, and she was at the centre of a lot of the stories of the English episodes that went out, because later on in the series, probably the 4th, 5th and 6th series weren't really aired in the UK, so you probably remember it best from the first 3 series. First, though, you're going to hear from Loretta Chandler, who has played the part of Dusty in the latter stages. And a little bit later on, I'll tell you about a reunion event which is taking place with, I think, 8 or 9 of the stars later in the year. So that's to come. First up, Loretta Chandler. And what does she remember of her days in fame?
Well, first of all, 40 years ago, not sure if I'm going to claim that or not. But I remember when I was in, so I guess I'm going to have to age myself here. I remember when I was in high school, I think it was a freshman in high school, we went to see the movie. All of the different students who were in, the music department or some kind of drama, we were all art students. And we just thought, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. I wish my life was like that. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if you were part of a show like that someday? And when the series came out, we were floored. We were with it every single day. Can't believe I got a chance to be a part of it. But I remember being in my bedroom, practicing and dancing and learning the steps to some of the songs, thinking, God, if I could just do that, that would be so amazing. Never in my wildest dreams thinking I would be a part of it, because I was actually going to a university, CSU, and I was doing a double major. I was doing music, but I was also doing computer science. And I remember looking at a brochure that said Cal Arts, and the colors on the brochure and the square said, you got to go. I don't know. Actually, I do know. It was just God saying, you go here. You go here now. Not knowing it was an exclusive school, hard to get into, I applied. They accepted me right away. And I was there for 1 semester when I auditioned for Fame and got it. I still can't believe it. When they called me, I was like, I had gone to so many different auditions and I took so many people with me that when they called me, I didn't believe it was them. I thought one of my classmates was playing a trick on me. I'm like, no, I've already called down there. They told me they picked someone already. I know I didn't get it. And the lady was like, no, we really want you for this show. We want you to be a series regular. I'm like, I auditioned for 1 series, so I know you're not real. Not knowing I had auditioned for a series regular to be a star on the show. I thought it took all that just to be on 1 episode. So she's like, okay, when you get the contracts, don't tear them up, send them back, okay? So I called my parents and I'm like, is this for real? Did I really get Fame? And Dad's like, I don't know. So when the contracts came, of course, I was screaming and yelling. I couldn't believe it. I'm going to be on Fame and I'm going to be part of the cast. And I can't believe it happened. It's just so amazing. And I have to thank God every single day for it, because being on the set was exactly what I thought it would be. The cast was great. Everyone was so talented and helping you and supporting you. Nia took me on as my big sister to show me the ropes about Hollywood. It's just amazing. And to be a performer and to be on a show about performers, what can be better than that? You're living your dream and expressing it at the same time. It
felt to me when I was watching it a groundbreaking series. I mean, it had the wonderful music.
Yes.
It had the wonderful relationships, the complex relationships that we all love. So it was a buddy program as well. But it also had, I think, a lot of storylines that are still very, very relevant today. And actually, I think television is missing a lot of those storylines today. At the time, you were very, very young. And Valerie Landsburg is joining us as well now, who played Doris in Fame. And so I suppose the question really goes to both of you. It felt to me like those were really important stories. And when I look back now as a much older adult, and I think, wow, what great stories. Why don't we see stories like this anymore? Did you realise that at the time, or were you too young and were you just going along with it and letting it happen?
Oh, no, I absolutely realized it. We have the most incredible writers on the show. And I believe that's because they've been performers too. They knew what our struggles were. They knew what our pain points were. And they weren't afraid to share that and tell the story the way it is. And when I came on, they built a lot of my character off my own life. I actually am a pastor's daughter. And they talked about what that struggle is, because that can be difficult. Some of what you need to do does not necessarily correlate with what you've been asked to do as a Christian. So, yeah, they absolutely understood it. They weren't afraid of it. They would touch that rail, and then they would help you understand how to bring yourself through it. So they were amazing writers.
Well, from Dusty to Doris, your character, and this I suppose could apply to anybody, any actor, because I talk to a lot of actors. You know, when they're casting somebody, they look for somebody who has the right look. You've explained, Loretta, that you had actually a bit of the right backstory as well. Was it like that for you as well, Valerie, that they looked at you and saw a character? And actually, as an actor, is that a worry? Because then you almost feel like you could be typecast, couldn't you?
Well, the interesting part of my story is that I auditioned for the same part in the movie.
Wow.
And I didn't get it. My friend Maureen Teefy got it. And I was devastated. So now it's like 3 years later when the TV series takes place. And, you know, I don't know whether, I think it was probably, I don't know, just probably was who I was. I mean, the three people that were in the last final for that role were Fran Drescher, Jennifer Grey, and myself.
Wow.
And I remember like doing this, and we did a test, and then we all had to do a last audition in person with Bob Kelgen, who was the director of the pilot. And that just whatever it was, like that was it. And I remember he had this big reaction to kind of who I was. And then like the next day they called me and they said, that's it. It's you. You know, so.
Your story, Valerie, when I read about it, almost is the story of fame. You know, you shot to fame in the 80s in an iconic character, in an amazing series, which I'm speaking so highly about. But then, correct me if I'm wrong, you slightly went off the rails. You had some troubles. You then gone through a second phase of your life post-fame, both in the literal sense and the TV sense. And now here you are now, a mature woman with presumably a completely different career and life again. So you've had all the different gamuts of fame in your life, haven't you? The good and the bad.
Well, I think that's, before I was on Fame, I had done this other really big movie. And, the truth is, it's like even with that period of time where I left Fame and during that summer got sober, and by my 34th day of sobriety, I had been hired in another series. And so that career didn't stop. I worked virtually nonstop for 13 years. And when I got into my kind of early 30s, that's when, I was longing for other things. I had the opportunity to write on Fame. I'd had the opportunity to direct on Fame. I was getting more work as a director. I had started to work more as a writer. And, that became a big part of it. Although even as that time went on, like particularly in my 30s is what I was just like I was the standard fourth lead in a movie of the week. That was like, I was always the person, with the lead person going like, oh, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. And, so, but then to go on to more directing, but, I worked through my whole career. I had a series that I created, bought at Lionsgate Television. I did all these things.
How significant, and let's start with Loretta, how significant was that relatively short period in your life in Fame to you now when you look back on your life?
life-changing and extremely significant even now, because as a performer, you never leave that. That's just who you are. So having a chance to share that with the world, it didn't stop. I didn't do a lot of TV after Fame because theater is my first love. So I traveled the world doing theater. I've won various awards for Dreamgirls, and I'm teaching and I'm writing and directing myself. I just wrote a play called The Black Pathfinder, which did very well here in Atlanta. Then COVID hit, so we're ready to send it back out. We've got some people in Bermuda that want to bring it back every year. So life-changing, affirming that what I wanted to do my whole life is exactly what I get to do and sustain myself with. So there's nothing better. I mean, I think the phrase out there is if you're doing work that you love, it's not work. So my life has been a total blessing.
This is going to be the same question to you, Valerie, and I'll sort of just slightly qualify it by saying I'm essentially a sports journalist as the first love, and I talk to a lot of sports people, and quite often in conversation you talk about a great goal or a great 100 meters event that is the defining moment of their career, and you do wonder whether they get sick of talking about the same thing, that this one thing defines them as a person. So even though I know, Valerie, you were in numerous series of Fame, so you were in it for quite a while, it's still a relatively small part of your life, which has got so much other stuff in it. So how, when you look back now with 40 years of hindsight, how significant is Fame to you?
Well, you know, I've been writing actually a lot about this, but it is so significant for me, not only because it continues to be the gift that keeps on giving in this beautiful way, but, and I have to say, all of our fans like completely let us grow up, like, and love us as who we are today. So that's huge. I mean, who gets that, right? But that 5 years from the time I did the pilot till the time I left was so significant in changing me, growing me up, teaching me, letting me find more of me. And I always say that, I mean, I've said this probably a ton of times, but I feel like Doris was, because I was four and a half, almost 5 years older than Doris, right? It was all hindsight. So I got to kind of redo in many ways parts of my adolescence, you know, and that was huge. And I was lucky because, you know, Loretta and I had very different writers, and they were all, you know, astonishing writers. And Bill Blinn got me. He got me. He understood me, and he wrote for me. And that was, you know, and a lot of what was in Doris was me, you know, that's my struggle. That's like, I'm the girl who doesn't have the girlfriend, the boyfriend. I mean, I'm not the person who's chosen. I'm not the, you know, I'm that, but I'm like, you know, this. And so
you're the caring person that Doris was.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I always say it's like, you know, if Doris, you know, I think that probably Doris did not become, you know, did not move on with a career as an actress. I think Doris probably became a therapist, you know, because that was really it. And that's, you know, that's kind of me in my life. I mean, I'm very maternal. I can be bossy. Not so much anymore. I'm not less bossy now. But it really is. And probably of every role I've ever played, it is probably the most like me. Yeah. That when people see me now, they relate because it feels like it is the same person. It's not like I played a character that's completely different, you know, from what that was.
Now, I've been listening to an interview with Loretta Chandler and Valerie Landsburg, two of the stars of Fame. They played Doris and they played Dusty. And, of course, it's one of those series that if you were alive at the time and you were watching it, if you were a child of the 80s, then you remember it, I'm sure, very, very fondly. Doris was a character who was central to a lot of the episodes early on in the series, along with a character called Danny. So we're going to hear her talking now about her relationship and her friendship with Carlo Imperato, who played Danny.
Carlo and I had even though I'm older than he is, we had it was like brother and sister. We could be like loving each other and then fighting. And it's like it's the same, but I love him. And Lee and I met when we did the pilot. But I'll tell you the story, which is that when I was in I Ought to Be in Pictures, there was midnight screenings and they screened Fame. And we went to see the midnight screening, and I went and see what it was like. And I saw Lee in the movie and I went, I'm going to be friends with that guy. And a year later, that would all happen. So we did the pilot and then we became friends. So we hung out for a whole year almost in New York together. And then when we moved to LA to do the series, we got an apartment together. It's just friends, So Lee and I have a really deep and long friendship. And, and it's the same too. It's the same too with Carlo. It's everybody. It's, and I feel like I've known Loretta forever now, having bathed in her presence.
You're amazing.
She is the one, she is just a light beam. And it was so great. It's like when Erica couldn't come and Loretta came, all of a sudden we had another whole piece going into, our family because some of the family isn't there, and some of the family is there. And the mix of it, Michael is coming this year. It's like so fabulous.
And thank you so much for making me feel welcomed. You guys just brought me in kind of like a little sister and mentored me, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
I suppose the big one that everybody would have missed, and you did not have the chance to perhaps even know Gene Anthony Ray. I don't know if you ever had any chance to come across him, but he's the one that fans, you actors, it doesn't matter who it is, would be the one that we would love to see at the reunion, wouldn't we?
We would. And he was like a big brother when I came to the show because he was still there. And he actually didn't live that far from me. I would go over to his house and play tennis. We'd hang out a lot. He took me out a couple of times to some clubs just to show me the LA scene as well. But such a beautiful, sweet soul. And I guess a lot of that stuff was blocked from me. I didn't know a lot of the things that was going on in his life at the time. I found out about it later. I had no idea that he was wrestling with so many different challenges, but he was always so sweet and so loving. And I remember once in the dance hall when we were dancing, I messed up one of the steps, something Dusty does all the time. And I ran into him and it was like hitting a brick wall. This man is just so hard and so tight. And so, his body was built for that type of dancing that he does. And I just had no idea. But everything else about him was soft and loving and just so sweet. Miss him so much.
I met him in the pilot. I had seen him in the movie. I met him in the pilot. And, he was so young. But there are very few people I have ever known who have, very few people I've ever known who have that level of talent. Everything he could do, all of it. And all of it was not trained, really. It was just, he was just amazing. And we have, it just, it was great. After the series, years after the series, he decided to teach a class. And I was going to that class and it was just the most wonderful thing. On top of everything else, he was an incredible teacher, so, and we all just none of us can talk about him without, this, because he was that kind of presence. We never forget him. Every concert we do, everything, this part comes up and all of us are sobbing because he was so special. And I was with him pretty close to the end of his life. And even in that, he was still like, I'm here, Yeah. Kind of a one of a kind.
Absolutely.
Well, I was going to ask you because before you joined us, Valerie, I was talking to Loretta about the to me, the significance of the writing in the episodes. I mean, it was such a diverse series. It embraced everybody from every single background. It was so ahead of its time, and to me, still so relevant today. I just wonder whether each one of you would have a favourite storyline that you recall from either the episodes that you were in, or even an episode that you may not have been in and watched, that had a particular message that you were really part of or wanted to believe in.
I'm going to say the first episode that I was in, because it was titled A Place to Belong. And before getting to the Fame set, I had so many doubts about me being qualified for this role. Because when I auditioned for it, I didn't really come to audition. I was just bringing a bunch of dancers there to audition. I had a car. I drove them down there. But I wanted to meet Debbie Allen, and they wouldn't let me on the soundstage unless I had a number. So I took a number, came in, auditioned, ended up, coming back and got the part, still not feeling worthy on the inside to be a part of this group that I've been admiring and loving my whole life. So when I got there, everyone was warm, but inside I was panicked. Like, what am I doing here? These people are amazing, and it's just me. I'm from Colorado. I don't even really understand my heritage. I remember they did a show about Apollo, and I've never even heard about the Apollo Theater. They wrote it in the script. They were like, how do you not know? I'm like, Pueblo, Colorado. There's not a lot of Blacks there. My parents didn't focus on that. But the director came to me when I had to do a scene, and I needed to cry, and I wasn't sure if I could because, again, I'm still terrified. Don't even know if I can act. Been acting my whole life, but TV's different. He just sat me down and just started talking to me about my experience and my road here, and the tears flowed. He knew, you're living this. I wrote it. Go be it and put it on camera. And that was the whole thing. It's exactly why it's so powerful. Like Valerie said, they know who we are. I think they can reach in and take that and put it on paper and help us share it with the world. So A Place to Belong was my Fame family. And I'm so glad that they welcomed me in.
My favorite is always going to be Not in Kansas Anymore, because that's just...
That was awesome.
That's like, if I just need to, make myself feel better, I watch the last part where I go through the hallway with all the people coming around, because it was really like me getting to do an MGM musical. That's really what it was. And that, it was interesting because we the thing that came up in a lot of conversations recently was we all belonged to one tribe. We were all artists. So race really never came up in this because we were bound by being artists. And that was, and it was something when we did this, we did a thing with the Glee people. And they said, yeah, you are the model. That's the thing. And but the Not in Kansas Anymore was so much fun. I mean, it was so much fun and great. Yeah.
I could talk to you guys forever. I'm very tempted to actually talk to you forever, but I'm going to ask you about songs because these weren't throwaway songs, because I still play them. I still listen to them. They still inspire me. Not all songs are like that, of course, but Loretta, have you got a favourite song from Fame that either you sang or one of the rest of the cast sang that is in your heart?
Yeah, I have two. High Fidelity, I think, is everybody's favorite because it's just fun and it just takes you to another place. And then the song they wrote for me, while I was on the show, they let me sing quite a bit, but I was always singing kind of hard gospel. And I want to do one of those sweet, loving ballads. And I finally got a chance to do one and in an episode where I fall in love with Jesse. And it's called Easy to Believe. If you believe in me, then I can believe in me. And I love that song. Love that song. It's my favorite. I need it every now and then just to remind myself, you can do this. It's okay. You're worthy. Someone believes in you. Believe in yourself. Keep going.
You know why we also had great songs? It was a very slow time in the record business. And we had the best musicians that were around. And we had songwriters who've written like amazing songs. So that was the gift of that time. You know, it's probably Beautiful Dreamer, which was written by my friend, Paul Jabara, who I was in a movie with. You know, I love Beautiful Dreamer. And, you know, it's kind of like all those songs it's all the songs that I sang with Lee. You know, it's like Turn to Me, you know, the other one who I really loved, and it was so beautiful to sing it with Cynthia, was singing Shadows and Light with Cynthia, because that's another really astonishing kind of song.